Just said it wasn't a good time. We're doing a podcast, and he totally understood.
He did. He got it.
I'm sure he was taping one himself at the door. He was
going door to door. It's just a different experience.
He's like, I work at UPS, and every day I do interviews with the people I drop off to. This is UPodcast.
Well, yeah.
Okay, so we're live. Testing. Today on Quality Time with Family Ties, we learn when my professor swears that he is made of truth, I do believe him, though I know he lies.
2, 1. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quality Time with Family Ties. I am one of our two hosts, and that's what I'm going with. We're going to call him a special guest from now on. One of our two hosts, Corey Pepper, along with me, as always, from warm New York City. Is it warm today?
It was very pretty today, yes.
I saw a picture of you out on the street today, and you were wearing a light jacket, so I thought it couldn't be that warm. It must have been a lovely spring day.
Well, I'm wearing it inside, but Corey, did you know that wasn't a picture of me?
That was not you? You said it was not you, but I didn't know whether it was truthful or not.
I saw that.
Yeah. That's actually one of my friends, Dave, took a picture and sent it to me, being like, doppelganger. And he knew it wasn't me.
Right, this is a doppelganger. I know it's not Paul, but this guy looks so much like Paul. And of course, doing like some, really self-important standing in the street corner on his phone bullshit.
His physicality is me. That's the craziest thing.
I think that's what I got more than anything else. Look, if I was watching somebody do an improvisational character of Paul Packler, I would, as a teacher, the first thing I would say is, well, you got his body, you got the physicality right.
Yeah.
Well,
Corey, do you remember at Disney when, we all played dwarfs and there were all these uniformed character, the fat pad you would wear, the big beard that you would wear? You couldn't really tell who was who, but because we knew each other so well, you could tell who was on stage just by their body language.
That's correct.
I bet we could still do it.
I was going to say, I was looking to for a piece of tape online, and whenever I would watch Snow White that some guest had posted, it took me a moment or two, but I had to identify by face. I could only identify, and that's including myself. How do I identify myself? Which is really weird to go, okay, it's not me. It's Reggie, or it's like you sit there in a process of elimination. It's like, okay, now I got it from the physicality. But you're right, you could do it by physicality alone.
Yeah. So
very fun.
The other thing that's very fun was this episode of Family Ties, you guys.
Really? It's for those of you playing along with us, it's season 5, episode 15, A Higher Love.
What is that? What's his name?
Well, I remember.
Is that a song?
Winwood song. Yeah, it's a Stevie Winwood song, but I'm not sure if it's right time-wise. Maybe it is. 86 is this episode. Yeah, it would be about right. Give me a higher love. Maybe.
Okay.
I don't know. But boy, I didn't care for the episode largely for two reasons. One involving the A plot, and one is the B plot. The A plot only disturbed me because I think they disrespected Nick.
I mean, they totally did, but they kept him so true to form. I was shocked.
You know what? We have talked about it so many times about how we think Nick is a terrific creation, and I think he's a character that they have tried screwing with, and yet somehow or another, whether it's Scott Valentine himself or whether they're fighting against each other, he makes it work most of the time. And you're right, they kept him true to form, and they kept him as the nicest guy in the world.
He is St. Francis of Assisi.
Absolutely. He is the nicest guy in the world. And as much as they screw with him and they throw garbage at him, and he still comes out of it as the nicest guy in the world.
They throw garbage at him, and he turns it into art.
Yeah, he did. Well, that's what an artist does. Boy, and then of course my problem with the B plot, is my weekly problem this season. Andrew's appearance in it.
Well,
And I just
before we get there, I just want to say that I think this is the best episode of season 5 so far, and I didn't like it. Corey, before we started this episode, Corey was saying how much he hated the episode, which is, I'm sure, a shock to everyone listening. But I honestly think that this episode, it had everything worked, everything moved, everything had a beginning, middle, and end, and was logical internally, and it just wasn't that funny or interesting.
and I totally agree with you, and I hated it. I agree with you at point by point by point. There was nothing awful. It moved. They thought they wrote some jokes. I don't know. It still bothered me. Well, let's get into it. It starts off in the kitchen with Stephen and Elise discussing the fact that they have decided that in spite of the fact that Andrew wants a dog, they are not going to buy a dog. And they gave it a very good reason right off the bat. Mallory is allergic to dogs. I was worried they were never going to do that. And right off the bat, they threw it away. Mallory's allergic to dogs. We can't get a dog. So Andy comes in. Take it from there, Paul.
Andy comes in, and Brian Bonsall comes tearing around the island from stage right to stage left and makes a beeline for the table, barking the whole way through.
Mm-hmm. And then he does it. Is this the scene where he latches onto his father's leg, or no? He doesn't latch on.
He hops up and he starts, and then he does some other barking and he does some whining, I think. He ends up biting Steven's leg, which in 1986, I'm amazed he didn't get smacked.
I am too. As we watch, on a weekly basis, I can tell you why I hate him more and more. It's not just the haircut. I think I crystallized it to the haircut one week. But it's not just the haircut. It's the fact that he does everything by rote. I thought to myself, the director told him to take 8 steps, and he counted the 8 steps and bark once on each step, then jump into Steven's lap, and then pant 3 times, then jump off of Steven's lap and beg, and then after you beg, bite his leg. It's like everything is broken down for him. There's nothing organic, nothing believable, nothing real. It's what he's been taught to do.
But I'll say this, he said he does more steps than before, Corey. I think like he's my own child. Like I have lots of friends who are having children right now, and you get to witness the parents talk about as opposed to interesting things, they talk about all of the boring things that their kids are learning now. Like, oh, now they're able to fart on command, or not, these sorts of No, I'm kidding.
I know what you're saying. You're saying he's getting a little bit more complex with his moves. It's not.
Yeah, he does a ton of things in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. They used him the most they've ever used him in this episode, which did nothing but made me feel mildly nauseated, if I could quote somebody else.
Oh. That's a deep cut for you congressional hearing fans.
Well, Mallory's there, and she comes in. By the way, and Mallory looked lovely in this episode. The whole episode, she looked terrific. And another episode where I can't really say too many terrible things about Mallory.
No, I thought Justine Bateman did a great job. The blue dress, Corey.
You know what, Paul? I knew you and I would say the same thing. I said for a dress that covered her up entirely, it may have been one of the sexiest outfits she's ever worn on the show.
Bar none. It was, wow.
Double take on that outfit, because I wanted to see how long the dress was, and I realized it was almost full length. It was her entirely. It was collared, it was sleeved, it was full length, it was hot.
Yeah, Yeah, and you know what? I tried to draw, because I'm a terrible drawer.
Mhm.
I tried to draw like the wolf eyes where they're popping out of your head, but then it just looked like two boobs, and I was like, well, that covers it anyway. So
Well, she looked terrific in that dress. That's later on. She's in early in this, and she's mentioning that they're having a poetry reading from her class at Grant College, and tonight she's hosting the poetry reading, and she sent Alex out to get something like fancy for the poetry reading, like croissants, and instead he comes back with Pop-Tarts.
well, you know what? In 1986 in Columbus, Ohio, I don't think you would find croissants anywhere.
You know, I thought the same thing. I questioned that, whether you'd find a croissant in Columbus.
And so
Today.
she's very excited at this guy who is a grad student at Grant College, which again, in past episodes I've defended community college, but I'll say this, I don't think they have grad schools at community colleges.
That was the thing that I did a little bit of a double take on. When the guy's getting his master's degree at the community college, I was thinking, I don't think they've invented that community college yet where you can have a graduate school.
I mean, that would be an amazing sequel for Community, for the Dan Harmon show.
So wait a minute. So I do 2 years here, then I transfer to a school to get my bachelor's, but then I can transfer back to get my master's? Why did you just fill in those 2 years that was missing there for a 4-year degree?
That would be amazing.
It makes no sense at all.
And she's very excited because this grad student, his name is Colin Spencer, and he is the bee's knees, to use some figurative poetry language.
And that is if the bee's knees appears with a wonderful 1986 mullet.
That mullet could break the sound barrier.
It was a hell of a mullet. That was another one. I was looking at that from a few different angles. Like, wow. It's like he had a little flip to it. I mean, there was a whole lot going on with his hair.
He was wearing all black and a white scarf. He looked like he was in Tears for Fears.
And he arrives and he refers to Mallory in what I thought was maybe one of the sharpest jokes in the whole episode, which was really just a reaction from Michael J. Fox, which was him saying to Mallory that she's one of the brightest students that he's met in a long while. It just sort of sit right on Alex's face.
Yeah.
He's amused that the graduate student from Grant is deeming his sister the brightest student that he's met in a long while.
Yeah, I mean, for all of the times that Alex has made fun of that, I think that this is the most earned Mallory is dumb joke in the whole show.
Exactly. And let's face it, that's what the rest of the show is. You know, I was thinking, I blame Gary David Goldberg for the one-note Mallory is dumb jokes that we get on the show constantly. But if you look at, I still refer to 2.5 Men as 7 years of dick jokes.
Yeah. And
I still refer to The Big Bang Theory of, 8-9 years of nerd jokes. So why not? Why not? You have one joke, you're just going to beat it into the ground with them. And that's the Mallory is dumb, in spite of the fact that they've written episode after episode proving that Mallory is not dumb.
Yeah, and arguably this episode she's not dumb, but then at the end they have to make sure that she thinks she is.
Yeah, that's right. Got to keep her down at the end. So we go to the second scene, and the second scene is in the living room, and it's the poetry club. And right off the bat, the camera tells us that Skippy Handelman is there.
That is what the camera tells us.
That's what the camera tells us, that Skippy Handelman is there. It's the first shot that we get is Skippy's Punim sitting right there, listening to Colin Spencer read poetry.
He's in all black, a black turtleneck, and he's wearing a black beret. It's the Paul Packler uniform.
It is, and I wanted to snap my fingers like a beatnik whenever he was around.
Yeah, Daddy-o.
There was a side shot of Mallory, and I realized her hair was down in the scene, and she almost has the exact same hairstyle as Colin Spencer. Except she wears it a lot better.
Yeah, it looks better on her, absolutely.
Much better. And when you see Nick later on, he's got the same hair too.
Well, that's what happened because at one point I was like, "Where the fuck is Nick?" And he came in the last scene, I think, right, saying hello.
Yep, last scene of the first act. Yep,
And
and he
so,
comes in and he's had a Brazilian blowout or something with his hair. Something went on there.
you know what it is? I think that they were really trying to make both of them, the two guys, look exactly the same.
Yeah, so exactly. I think that that's exactly what they did. Oh no, Nick comes in right now. The doorbell rings, and it's Nick in the middle of the poetry read. Now, in another funny moment, what does Nick pull out of his backpack? But a carton of milk, and he starts drinking from a carton of milk in the middle. Now, we know that Nick is not. He appears classless, but he is not classless.
No, I think that he's uncouth, but he's very empathetic to people.
Yes. I wrote down, they wrote Nick in this scene as if he has zero social skills.
Right.
And what we've seen before is that Nick is smarter, nicer, and can negotiate better than any character in the show.
Absolutely, I completely agree. He's the best character on Family Ties. He's the dark horse from my favorite character. Didn't see it coming.
Mm-hmm. And I agree. Couldn't have seen it coming. And if you had told me about this character coming onto the show, I would have dismissed it as something awful. And yet, there's something really profoundly likable about him. And if they would relax on the Rambo speak just a little bit, it'll get a little bit better later on, I think.
Yeah, I agree. The other thing about this scene before Nick comes in is that the Colin guy is reading tons of poetry. And you know what's the worst thing in the world is listening to anyone read poetry.
Poetry. Yep, that is just about the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, I mean, I try to like poetry, and there's certain writers that I like and stuff like that, but man, oh man, is it boring to listen to.
Mm-hmm. And sort of Nick drinking his milk and acting with no social skills, they decide to call it a night. We're going to call it a night. And somehow or another, Colin Spencer finagles it so that he's alone with Mallory. Nick leaves, and he's very pleasant about leaving. He's alone with Mallory. He reads her another poem, which, you know, would probably bore the shit out of you or me, but it works on her. He asks her out. There's an awkward moment, which is followed by an awkward kiss, in which she does not respond one bit.
No, she says, wow. She's just like, wow. When he asks her out, she says, wow. It's crazy because Colin just saw her boyfriend. He just met her boyfriend. And then he's like, let's sit down and I'm going to recite a poem to you. Then he goes, go out with me. And then he kisses her. And the balls on this guy.
That's what I thought. I thought he has brass balls. The smell of Nick, his carton of milk is still there. I mean, the body's not cold yet. It's like he hasn't been gone 3 minutes, and he's moving in on Mallory with a poem and a date and a kiss.
It was shocking, but I will applaud Family Ties for just getting the fucking thing moving.
Well, and when you said at the top of the show, the plot moves on another episode of Family Ties, you know they could stretch this out so that this was the denouement at the end of Act 2 instead of the no denouement in the middle of Act 1.
Exactly. So A+ to plotting and moving shit forward. So see, look, we're given good. I love this. I think it's great.
I'm giving them props 30 years later. Scene 3, Andy. They come home, and they've just come home from the pet shop, and Andy got a goldfish instead of getting a dog. And
Corey, you say Andy got a goldfish, but he hates the goldfish, whereas Steven and Alex love the goldfish.
They're totally amused by the goldfish. It's adorable.
Yeah, so this is the whole B plot, is that everyone likes the fish except for Andy, who still wants a dog.
Just wants a dog. Mallory comes in her sexy blue dress.
Mm-hmm.
She spouts some poetry to her family.
She's obsessed. She's in love.
And she says, how do people, Alex, or does she ask this to Alex, to everybody, how do people know when they're really in love? She's high as a kite on love with Colin Spencer, and then there's a door knock, and delivery boy, overacting delivery boy, I think is the actual name of the character, overacting delivery boy, because he does. He tries to make way too much of his moment delivering flowers. Hey son, nobody makes a moment out of delivering flowers. Deliver the flowers.
Yeah. That was, but also Corey, they're in the kitchen, so this delivery guy comes to the back door to give flowers.
Goes to the back door only because they knew that the actors were in the back. They were in the kitchen, so he goes to the back door. He delivers the flowers and reads the card, and it's with love from Colin, and we fade out on a moonstruck Mallory who has just gotten flowers from not her boyfriend.
And before we go to commercial, I'm going to leave this up to the audience to decide. Do you think that Alex was wearing a belt into his tucked-in pants or not?
Belt or no belt?
Think about it, and we'll be right back. And we're back. So let's take a second and poll the audience. All right, so what did you think? Did Alex wear a belt or no? Oh, that's interesting.
I watched the episode this afternoon, and I'm having a hard time remembering. But if I know my Family Ties history, and I am now a connoisseur of the history of Family Ties, I'd be betting that there'd be no belt.
Corey, you did it. He didn't wear a belt into his tucked-in jeans.
And his very trim body. He's a very trim young man. What would you get? Well, I'm going to ask you. What do you don't have to shop in the children's department anymore, do you, Paul?
Well, it depends. I have some things that I've gotten from children's department.
Yeah, because you're a petite. You're a junior.
Yeah, I'm extra small.
Junior petite.
Yeah. No, I just this jeans jacket I'm wearing is actually a women's jeans jacket because I liked how small it fit. So there you go.
Exactly. Yeah, you're a petite. I'm a husky. We're all what we were when we were children. My mother used to go into the clothes department, and she would laugh. She would stage whisper the word "husky" to the clothing man.
They had to have gotten rid of that.
Huskies.
They had to have gotten rid of husky by now. I mean, it's.
I'm sure hoping that there's still a body shaming 8-year-olds.
Here's the elastic band for you, Timmy.
Oh Lord! So we're at the top of Act 2, and Andy drops a dog biscuit into the fishbowl.
And then what does he do, Corey?
He what does he do? Does he pull the dog biscuit out?
No, he looks after he drops it. He looks right off stage to where his parent is.
Of course, that's what he does. Is he looks right at Mom.
Yeah.
I did just what you said, Mom, didn't I?
Yep.
You told me to come here and drop that dog biscuit into the fishbowl. I did it.
It was the worst he's done in the whole season so far.
Now he looks right over. He almost snaps his head like he's going to get a little whiplash on the head snap.
Right.
Because he's looking down at the bowl, and then he looks up for no apparent reason. Mm-hmm. That's what I mean. He does what he's told, but there's no acting in between being told what he's to do.
No, it's the worst type of acting.
Exactly.
Nothing.
We find out, by the way, he's named his goldfish. Is it Kissinger or Agnew? Which one did he name it?
So Steven wanted to name it Mr. Fish. Alex wanted to name it Kissinger. And Andy wanted to name it Lassie. And then throughout the episode, they just keep switching it around.
Mallory comes in once again, spouting poetry. That's pretty much what they did. That was the go-to thing in this episode. When in doubt, just have one spout poetry.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell if it was real poetry or not. Sometimes it was real poetry.
And sometimes it was made up writer poetry.
Yeah.
Alex did have a good joke. The name of the poem was Pourquoi. 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 Right. And she said she thought it was French, and I speak French. And Alex said, "Wow, you're illiterate now in 2 languages." I thought that was funny also.
That was good. Mm-hmm. And then Nick comes over.
Mm-hmm.
And she's holding Colin's flowers that he gave to her in the last scene.
Yes, and she's clearly feeling guilty for holding the flowers. And while she's bathed in guilt, Nick goes over and sees the note, "Love, Colin." He refers to Colin as the poetry wimp.
Right, he calls him the poetry wimp, and then he's like, I'm like, I wrote down, Nick is pissed. And then he was like, oh, if you like him, I like him.
That's
And then I
what
wrote N''T after is. Nick is just a saint. He's the nicest person. He doesn't assume anything negative.
I know. I wrote that line down too because the way Scott Valentine played it was he was hurt, but boom, she says I like him, and he responds by saying, "If you like him, I like him." Not to it whatsoever. That's how supportive he is.
Yeah, he doesn't assume that she has a crush on him. He doesn't assume jealousy.
No, it's amazing. I guess, coming as a jealous person that I am, I would immediately go to jealousy. But it's not even in his purview. It's not there. He's willing to immediately say, "If you like him, I like him." That's it.
Yeah, yeah. And then what happens?
And then Mallory asks for room. She admits she's confused, and she says she needs room. And just like he said, "If you like him, I like him," she says, "I need room," and he goes, "Boom, you got it. I'm giving you room."
Yeah, he's upset. She's admitting that she kind of likes this guy, like more than just as a professor type thing.
And Nick is upset, but still, he doesn't get into an argument, which is probably a smart thing to do. He doesn't get defensive. He just does what she asked him to do. Give me some room.
I mean, let's say he's probably 20, 21 years old at this point. Like, you know, he has such wisdom beyond his years. Who would do such a thing?
I don't know. He acts so mature. He makes such mature decisions, and he seems to do them instinctively without thought. He doesn't have to think about things. He just does the right thing.
It's honestly, I don't even have the emotional wisdom to do so. Like, no, if someone you're with and that you almost got married to immediately at one point goes, I have a crush on this person and I kind of want to see it out, I would at least be upset and arguing.
Exactly. And yet he walks away and gives her the room and figures, I'm assuming that what he's figuring is, if you love something, set it free. It will come back to you.
Like a bird.
Like a bird. And he walks away and just hopes that Mallory's going to come back. So we cut to the next scene, which is the poetry club. And the camera, of course, tells us immediately that Skippy is there.
So the other thing that we forgot to bring up, Corey, is that one of my biggest crushes from when I was a kid, Penelope Ann Miller, is in this episode.
She is, and she appears in this scene and has sort of a virtual monologue. Sort of the defining moment in the whole episode really is hers, where she just sort of spills the beans on Colin Spencer. But we start the scene with Skippy complaining about some of the poetry being non-rhymers, which I thought was a funny word. Yeah, it's another non-rhymer.
that was one of. See, look at this, Corey. This is a good episode.
Well, I was able to point out some good funny lines. Yeah.
See, and we keep things moving. We got an A plot that's just cooking along.
And then, that's what it is. It's the girl's name is Joyce, played by Penelope Ann Miller.
Right.
And she refers to Mallory as, "Oh, are you this year's choice?"
And you know what, Corey? When we first started the episode, when you and I started talking, I thought that's what the title of this episode was, and it should have been.
It should have been "This Year's Choice." Absolutely. And then Joyce tells her the story step by step of what Colin Spencer's MO is with every choice that he makes. This is a TA who every year picks out the prettiest undergraduate and he goes for it. He's going to get laid. That's all there is to it.
Right. He's the kind of guy that has a mandolin and he turns the lights down. He gets out his dirty daguerreotype and, got stories about traveling throughout the wine region of France.
And they as Joyce is telling Mallory what Colin's going to do, not as of yet know that Colin's going to have this opportunity, but right then Colin has the opportunity because he rudely gets rid of Skippy.
Which is fine. I was before I was like, oh, this guy's a douchebag, but then he kicks Skippy out, and I was like, the way he does it, I was on board for that.
I know. I was on board with that too. I thought it was sort of funny. As the door's closing, Skippy said, Mallory drove me here. And it was like, sorry.
It was great. And the other thing that Joyce says is that he's going to sing the song I Gave My Love a Cherry That Has No Stone, which I think was an allusion to a famous scene in Animal House where there's the douchey guy that's playing acoustic guitar, and then what's his name? John Belushi takes the guitar and smacks it against the wall.
Smacks it right over him. And then, of course, they're alone, and it don't take very long at all. Another example of in another episode, they keep us waiting for this one. He gets rid of Skippy quickly, and he gets right to it. Gets right to everything that Joyce said, step by step. The lights get lowered. The mandolin comes off the wall. He sings her a song. He reads her some poetry. He tells her how much he loves her, adores her, and Mallory acts like Mallory is so hurt by this. Now, this is my only fault with what they did with Mallory. She's so hurt that you would have thought she had given it up already. In other words, you know what I'm saying? Because sex changes everything.
Okay.
She acted as though they'd already done it. And now she's finding this out. And they hadn't done anything. She hadn't really even been out on a date with her. So she found out that the guy's a creep, and I'm not sure where the investment was at this point.
You know what? I had less of a problem, but now that you bring it up, that makes sense. But I would say this, though. Because she's in a committed relationship with Nick, the fact that she has feelings for him as opposed to just lusts for him, maybe that's why she feels tricked, or why she has a stronger reaction.
Mm-hmm. And that she feels so hurt by this guy that she was just this year's choice.
Right.
So we go back to the house, and apparently the fish is missing, and we find out the tragic news that Agnew ate Kissinger.
Right. They got another fish at some point, and this fish ate the other fish.
Right.
But as we all know, Spiro Agnew is dead. Henry Kissinger is somehow still alive. So it's different than in real life.
And this is the point, Paul, where I have now decided I check out mentally of every episode. Everything is settled, and we usually come back to the kitchen, and there's some kitchen scene. I was waiting for a rapping at the back door from either Colin or Nick. Did we get Nick in the scene? Did Nick come back?
No, this is the only, for me, false note of the episode.
Okay, go ahead, tell me.
So just a quick thing that happens is when Andy is all excited at the fact that the one fish ate the other fish, Steven turns to Jennifer and says, Jennifer, take him away, about Andy, and then Jennifer, the mom, takes Andy, the son, away. But just the fact that Steven was so dismissive of Andy, with such hate in his heart when he said it, I love that a lot.
Let's get rid of him.
So what happens is, once everyone's gone, Mallory comes in and talks to Elise about what happened with what happened with Colin, and then Elise starts to be like, well, these things happen, and it's about growing and finding out who you are. And stop me, Corey, if you remember any of this, but there's a thing where Mallory says, I wasn't who I actually am. I tried to be someone different because of Colin and stuff like that. And then Elise is like, well, you have to have these mistakes in order to learn about things. And my qualm with this is that maybe Mallory is the type of person who likes poetry, though. Like, we just completely abandon it because she obviously had real enjoyment of it.
It couldn't have just been seen through the prism of lust. that she enjoyed the poetry. And I would think that as a parent, that would be still something you would be encouraging your child. Well, okay, I'm sorry that this didn't work out with Colin, but if you enjoy poetry, you should probably read more, take more classes, whatever it is.
Right, yeah. They seem to make the point of, like, either you like poetry and Colin, or you're a moron. And they
and they sort of side on this episode with, well, she's really much more of a moron.
Yeah, it's so weird that they make it into this strange dichotomy, and I didn't understand that. And so what happens is they start to commiserate about that Elise had a Colin back when she was in college, this guy who was in her ballet class named Granville Mitchell, and that he told her that she was going to do blah, 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 and then all of a sudden it's over, Elise leaves, and then Mallory goes to the phone and calls Nick to say, hey, do you want to go out for tacos?
And that's the end.
And Corey, I mean, this is where, like I said, the only part that rang false to me is you are Family Ties. You are the show that has the two important people get into a room together at the 21st minute of the episode to discuss and hash it out.
Yeah. Why didn't you bring? I wrote down my last note, and that's why I stopped taking notes, is Nick will enter soon.
And he doesn't even come on stage. They don't even do a split screen.
No, they do nothing. And I can't believe that she didn't. I mean, ultimately, hey, you want to go out for tacos, you know they're going to make up and everything's going to be fine when they go out for tacos. At least I'm assuming that's what's going to happen. But
right.
I would have liked to have seen that scene.
Yeah, I mean, what an interesting scene of, why did you like this guy and not me? Well, I like this part of myself. Well, you can still have that part and have me.
And they could have just turned it to Nick reading poetry to her at the end, and it would have been funny.
Oh, it would have been brilliant. It would have been such a nice culmination of where they work through a problem together as a couple.
Exactly. And they show their own maturity, that these kids are growing up and they can work through a problem. And I think they missed that opportunity for a mommy-daughter scene at the end.
Yeah, that bought us nothing. That's something that we've seen a million times already.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so anyway, so like I said, this was the best episode of season 5 so far, and it wasn't great. And Corey, I think I convinced you too.
I agree with you. I found it to be, I watched it, sometimes I have to watch one of these 22-minute episodes over about an hour and 15 minutes. I sort of space it out by the scene, and then, because sometimes I'm just thinking, oh my God, I know what's going to happen next, and I'm just dying here. I just can't watch it. And this one, I think I may have watched over about 45 minutes.
You got a good 15 minutes off.
Really, it wasn't bad at all.
Yeah, I would recommend watching this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's definitely not in the pantheon of our favorites, but I think this is one that is an enjoyable episode. And it's a different one that we normally see because it is a Mallory episode.
Did we mention that Penelope Ann Miller, who's in this episode, correct? As Julie, is married to Daniel Day-Lewis? Isn't that correct?
Is she really?
Isn't she Arthur Miller's daughter?
Oh, you didn't know that?
I think Penelope Ann Miller is Arthur Miller's daughter.
Oh, now I have to look this up.
Yeah, gotta look it up before we go.
Well, she is in my favorite movie that you hate that I love to talk about with you, is Awakenings.
Oh, just hate that movie. God.
No, she's... Oh my God, wait a second. Corey, she was married to Will Arnett from 1994 to 1995.
Wait, Will Arnett has been married to Penelope Ann Miller and Amy Poehler?
Isn't that weird?
Wow, I never knew that.
Yeah, and then she's married to James Patrick Huggins.
Okay. Oh,
since 2000.
That's the comedic actor, James Patrick Huggins. Is this the guy who? No, I'm thinking of somebody else who does the Christopher Guest movies.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, she's in Awakenings. I recommend watching that movie. If you agree with Corey more often than me, don't watch that movie.
The double feature of Awakenings and Patch Adams if you want your Dr. Robin Williams fix.
Oh man. Oh. Wow, I could just imagine doing that on a Saturday.
I can imagine putting a bullet through my brain, too.
So, that's it for this episode. We're about halfway through season 5, which is a blessing. Pretty soon, Corey, we're going to be at the My Name Is Alex episode.
I can't wait for that. It's
What do you think? Do you think you think you're gonna enjoy it, or do you think you're gonna hate it?
Oh, I think I'll hate it. As my favorite TV doctor, Dr. Phil, always says, the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior. So I can only predict I'll probably hate it. From this season, I'll hate it.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's really good advice from Dr. Phil. I've never watched Dr. Phil.
Mm-hmm. What you're missing out on.
I'll just talk to you.
That's it. I'll give you my interpretation.
It was a great impersonation. So
thank you very much. This is going to be a defining day in your life.
Oh my God, how much did you watch this show, Corey?
Enough that my family makes fun of me.
Oh my God. All right, so let's get out of here.
Okay.
Rate and review our show on iTunes. For questions and comments, email us at qualitytimewithfamilyties@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at QTWFT for updates. You can follow each of us. I'm at Paul Packler.
I'm at Corpep, and the Scott Jones, who used to be one of the co-hosts here, is at Follow Jones.
And you can like us on Facebook. We'd like to thank our host and producer, Barbara Dillon at Fanbase Press. Fanbase Press is a comic book publisher and an online community supporting other creators and fans through daily reviews, interviews, and podcasts that span the pop culture spectrum. www.fanbasepress.com. We'd like to thank Perry Adams, who beautifully performs Family Ties and our theme song, Without Us. Check out her website, perryadams.com. We'd also like to thank Bryant Dillon, who created our fantastic drawing and artwork, as well as edits our show. Bryant is the president, and co-founder of Fanbase Press. Follow him on Twitter at Comic Book Slayer. My God, I'm falling apart. Finally, we'd like to thank Sean Foster, Fanbase Press's graphic designer, for designing our logo. We'll see you next week. Corey, what do you think the odds of Scott being here next week are?
I sure hope he's back. I miss him. Come back, Scott.
Yeah. The best indicator of past, I fucked it up.
His future behavior. And so with that in mind, maybe Scotty won't be with us next time.
Bye.
Bye.